Let's begin with the jury deadlock in South Carolina right now. Brian Todd is here. Our legal analyst, Laura Coates, is here as well. Brian, first to you. Update our viewers.
Wolf, just moments ago, the judge in this case declared a short recess, saying he couldn't decide yet whether to declare a mistrial in this case. Sent the jurors back into their deliberation room, but declared a short recess in the case for the moment. He could be just sorting this out and may come back with a decision on whether a mistrial should be declared within the next few minutes. He may extend this maybe a little bit more this late afternoon and early evening. This has been a dramatic day in the court in the trial of the officer Michael Slager, who shot Walter Scott in the back several times last year in April of 2015. This trial has been going on, Wolf, for now 5 weeks, and today a fairly dramatic day in court. The jury did ask for testimony from the witness who shot the cell phone video that you're looking at right here. A few minutes later, they passed the judge another note saying it was clear that they could not reach a consensus in this case. It appears that it is one juror who has been the holdout in this case. He sent the judge a note saying he could not in good conscience convict Officer Michael Slager in this case. And again, what we've just heard is that the judge has declared a short recess. He has not yet decided whether to declare a mistrial in this case. The defense has asked for a mistrial. And again, of course, as we know, Wolf, if a mistrial is declared, that of course raises the possibility and the likelihood even that Michael Slager will be tried again for this. He's accused of murder. Another possibility is that he could have been found guilty of voluntary manslaughter in this case.
It has to be, Laura Coates, our legal analyst, unanimous for conviction. If one juror holds out, then the judge really has no choice but to declare a mistrial. Is that right?
That's right. And all you need is one, which is why defense counsel and prosecutors rely so heavily on jury selection. You're trying to identify the one person or two who may be the people to be in your favor. And remember, it's a holdout in favor of an acquittal. 11 of the 12 actually wanted a conviction, which is not surprising given the breadth of evidence you have in this very evident videotape. But it only takes one. Remember, there are still one more trial to go. This is his state trial. There's one more in January for the federal charges for whether he was acting under the color of law. But that's a very difficult hurdle to overcome if you already have a mistrial in your pocket.
How unusual, Laura, is it for the members of the jury to be sending notes to the judge, as we just saw, notes to the judge saying, get rid of this one juror who's the holdout because he shouldn't be on this jury? It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? It
is to have people contacting, because the judge will tell people, do not tell me which way you're leaning, one way or the other. I don't want to know about the deliberations at all. They were really trying to signal to the court, listen, this is an issue here. We've got 11-1 here. And remember, last night they had a note talking about, can you define for us the difference between fear and passion? So already then we knew we were thinking about, well, is it going to be a manslaughter only or rather than murder? But now we're hearing this may in fact just be a mistrial, and we are all astounded in the legal community.
Because we all saw the video, and we showed it to our viewers. Again, the police officer, Michael Slager, pointing his gun and shooting Walter Scott in the back a few times as he was running away. The argument the defense attorneys, Brian, are making is that this police officer still had legitimate fear that he could turn around and come after him.
That is the argument that the defense has made, Wolf, because the officer, Mr. Slager, has claimed that Mr. Scott took his taser at one point, and there was a taser seen in the video, but it's not really clear what role this taser had, whether Scott really even had it or not. The officer claimed there was some kind of a tussle involved. But look, this video shocked just everyone who saw it. This was clearly the officer shooting Mr. Scott as he ran away several times in the back. You see Scott going down. I was down there to cover that shooting at the time. I talked to witnesses who saw this. I talked to people in that neighborhood who said that this officer, Michael Slager, was known as a very aggressive police officer in that community. And, you would think, again, as Laura has pointed out, with all the evidence here, that it certainly leaned in favor of a possible conviction, but it's just, right now, it's just confusing. One juror seems to be a real issue here in this case.
Yeah, and Laura, the argument that the defense attorneys made is we all saw the few seconds of that video, which is obviously very compelling. The dead man, Walter Scott, running away, if you will, and being shot in the back by the police officer, Michael Slager. But the defense attorneys were saying there were no video of what happened leading up to that moment as he was running away. And that explains the state of mind of this police officer, why the police officer, in this particular case, Michael Slager, thought that there were legitimate safety concerns for his own life.
That's what their angle was. However, this man was shot when he was 18 feet from the officer. And whatever struggle may have ensued prior to that is not really the actual crux of the argument that should be made. But it only took one little seed of reasonable doubt in order to get this person to perhaps hold out and not want to do a conviction. And remember, the defense also has been very interesting. They said, listen, do not lump this officer in with all of the other cases you hear about officers who were involved in the shooting of unarmed civilians. This is not the example. But in fact, it is almost the bad apple that people point to when they think about whether or not officers are doing the wrong thing. This is somebody who also planted evidence, perhaps, according to the prosecution's case. So it's astounding that there is even a holdout, but it's not shocking that the justice system requires beyond a reasonable doubt and unanimity, and you don't seem to have it here.
It's certainly the one case among all the ones we've talked about and covered since Ferguson where you seem to see really fairly clear evidence here that the officer committed some kind of misconduct. Right. He's shooting at the guy as he runs away several times. You said 18 feet. I mean, It certainly seems right. That it's just the evidence here would seem to be clear. But again, one juror, it's that doubt that Laura points out. As to whether he was under threat or not, whether there was a taser involved or not, whether there was a tussle or not, and we don't have video of that.
And the judge in this particular case, if that one juror continues to hold out, as seems to be the case, they've been going back and forth now, the judge has no choice but to declare a mistrial, and then we'll see what the prosecution decides to do down the road.
That's absolutely right. They will have to figure out, listen, what was the reason there was a holdout, and is it worth us to go back and try this case again? And I think the community will probably say overwhelmingly, yes.
Laura Coates, Brian Todd will stay on top of the story. And of course, once the judge makes the final decision, we expect that to be fairly soon. We'll go live to that courtroom. Appreciate it very much.